First, Arsenal were beaten in the Premier League for the first time this season. Newcastle pulled off a huge 1-0 victory in the Saturday night football. Mikel Arteta, though, did not hold back after the match. He labelled the decision to allow Anthony Gordon's winner to stand a disgrace and embarrassment. Right, let's get to it then. It survived, that goal, 3 VAR checks, Darren. Nothing conclusive for them to disallow the goal. What did you think?
I don't think the goal should have stood. Cards on the table straight away. And I don't... You know, I thought about how to kind of frame this conversation. So I want to talk about what the referee, Stuart Atwell, did right. When there was all of that kerfuffle around the Kai Havertz challenge, should we call it, I felt he should have gone. But then when the Newcastle players approached him, I thought he was right to book them. I know the stats about it being a long time since 3 players booked in the same half, but the players know the rules. So there's no point approaching the referee and then basically raising your hand and saying, what did I do? What did I do? So I thought he was right about that. But I thought the handling around the goal itself, I thought was just wrong. I want to go through some of the detail in it as well. I know we're going to look at some of the pictures now. So Joe Willett tries to keep the wayward shot from Jacob Murphy in play. I think it's out of play. Lots of people believe the pictures are inconclusive. We'll get to that in a sec. Joe Linton, to me, pushes Saliba down. Now, I want to go through some of the checks because obviously there's a concern about potential handball, potential offside. Andy Madley was a VAR. He decided there was no conclusive evidence that the ball was out of play. That check lasted 33 seconds. Then there was that check to see if Joe Linton had fouled Gabriel. I said Saliba, it's Gabriel, to reach the ball first. That one lasted 50 seconds. Andy Madley deemed there was not sufficient contact to award a foul. And then the final question, was Gordon offside when Joe Linton played the ball? 90 seconds for that decision to be made. There was no conclusive evidence of offside. We couldn't find an available camera angle for the VAR to draw the line, right? So that's all of the facts. So the thing that screams out to me straight away is how are we in this place when we talk about technology being needed? Why do the officials not have the available cameras to be able to make definitive conclusions on all
here's
three?
in the title, it's called a video assistant referee, and what we're seeing is they don't have enough video to assist the referee. So it just makes no sense. Like I say, in this day and age, when there's 30 cameras or more on that game, why haven't we got some sort of aerial shot? If not, do we go back to more linesmen running, you know?
Well, look,
do we go back?
I think there are a couple of very basic things to make clear with this, and I'm sure you got a few on this, Melissa, but I think very basically this isn't a sweeping statement to lambast all referees and officials. You know, there are lots of them that do a good job. And sometimes when we have these conversations, we say, all referees are inept, all referees are incompetent. And that's not the case. Not the case. You know, and we've said this before, there are a lot of good people within the PGML who are working hard to try and get us the best experience on any footballing occasion. But on this occasion, and Jonathan Northcroft will get to his piece in a second, he talks about the fact that it's another game that Stuart Atwell has presided over, which has descended into chaos. The other thing to make clear is that we are talking about Newcastle against Arsenal, but this is a football problem. At some stage this season, most, if not all, of the clubs in the Premier League are going to get affected by this kind of decision. And this is a kind of thing that should not be coming up time and again. So, and with that, I would say there is not a football team in the land, whether they're in the Premier League, the Championship, League One or League Two, who would have been happy with that goal being awarded against them. So whatever the minutiae of what did or didn't stand, and people making cases for why Arsenal fans shouldn't be angry, everyone should be in the camp that with all of the discrepancies and potential issues with that goal yesterday, it should not have stood. Just, if I may, one last thing. It's very likely that Mikel Arteta will be charged by the FA on the basis of what he said yesterday. I actually think he was quite clever because he said, I'm embarrassed as a representative of the Premier League. That's quite clever. He wasn't saying, you know, hitting it. It wasn't a scattergun attack, if you like, on the officials.
No, I think he was very careful not to do that,
very careful.
actually.
But we work, Melissa, Vicky, in an industry, a media industry, which is changing all the time. Football is not changing with the idea that how is it that everybody can have an opinion on what we saw yesterday, but the man whose job it is to preside over victory and to get his team the best possible result cannot be honest about what he saw. So we blindly say, oh, the FA have charged him, we'll see the yellow ticket, the FA have charged Mikel Arteta with what he said. Why? Why are you going to sanction a grown man for telling the truth about what he saw? If he is punished for what he said, then we really are in a bad, archaic place. And this sport really does need to have a big look at itself. And we've got to have a conversation about that. Why is it that a grown man cannot say, I managed this football team and that goal was awarded against my football team and I cannot see how it was given? Why can a grown man not say that?
Melissa, what do you think? I mean, is it the technology? Is it the operators? What's gone wrong yesterday?
I think there's a whole series of issues. Firstly, we can't be in a position to not have definitive camera angles to judge on offside, to judge if a ball's gone out of play. It is absolutely ridiculous. The margins are so fine. We can't be in a position where we are awarding goals that we're not sure should have been awarded or disallowing goals that we're not sure should have been disallowed. There should be definitive angles. There's enough money.
You told me about the rugby.
Yes, there should be enough money in the game for that. Then there's a problem over communication. So IFAB have ruled that if we had to listen into the conversations, it would be chaotic. At the moment, it's already chaotic. And the little bits and pieces of audio that we have heard shows us a few things. One, communication is actually not very good between all the officials. Two, the process is severely lacking. And because there is mistrust in the process and we cannot hear the communication and see whether it's improved at all, those are issues. When you look at rugby and you see how well, if anybody's just watched the Rugby World Cup, you see how well detailed decisions are broken down in the video analysis, and then when you're hearing all the communication from the officials to each other and then from the referee to the players, you think, wow, that is an unbelievable...
Is it chaotic? Then I don't understand why we've got a room that's you know, as IFAB have labelled it chaotic. Why? Why is it chaotic? It shouldn't be. This is a game that's worth millions, and that potentially, as Mikel Arteta was pointing out yesterday, it's the fine margins. That's 3 points that could potentially losing the title.
And the big picture of this, and I was at Mikel Arteta's press conference on Friday when he was talking about the fact that this is potentially the widest title race that we've had for years. Newcastle are in that race.
Yeah.
You know, those points yesterday
Tottenham are in that race,
put them in that race. Tottenham lead it and they're in that race. Arsenal previously had been undefeated so far this season, just like Liverpool had been before that VAR debacle, and they then lost their unbeaten record. You talk about rugby. Tennis has a definitive line call system so that you know whether the ball is... Cricket has that technology. We have fortunes sloshing around in this sport, and yet we are still having conversations like this the morning after the night before. That cannot possibly be right.
We were in a situation 5 weeks ago where there was a goal that was determined to be a goal, not given to Liverpool. Liverpool's position on the matter was to come out and to say, we want clear communication, we want to understand the processes, we want improvement across the board in terms of how officials prepare for matches and how they're allowed to recover from matches. We want better training for officials. And the game decided, let's be tribal about this and let's turn this into Liverpool are moaning because they didn't get a decision.
That's a good point.
When at that point 5 weeks ago, all the clubs, all the managers should have taken the position of, we want to hear the communication, we want to know all about the process, we want improvement, we want better standards of refereeing, we know that they're humans, mistakes will happen, we know that they're not purposely trying to arrive at the wrong conclusions, but we want this process to be as transparent as possible, and we want there to be greater responsibility and greater respect. And people chose the tribal route. A lot of managers, Mikel Arteta included, came out and instead of saying, yes, we would like all those things, said, we know that referees are human, they'll make mistakes, we have to understand that, we have to accept that that's part of the game. And then you contrast that with his reaction yesterday. And the problem is now, people are going back and retweeting what he said 5 weeks ago. It was, I think that all clubs should be thinking about the greater good going forward, and it will be beneficial to the officials themselves if we have this greater transparency, and it will force them into better processes if we can all see into it.
Yeah, I'm guessing the papers are all across this. I just want to mention, you mentioned Johnny Northcross, he did a piece yesterday about it. I mean, it's spectacular, really, in terms of what he was saying about the situation, in terms of managers all getting together as well. You know, whether that's something that needs to happen. I think the problem is that you'd accept if it was definitive. Yeah. And it's the video assistant referee, and it's absolutely correct. But the problem we're having, it's still, as Johnny was pointing out, it's still humans that are doing that, and we're still having a kind of question about it all the time. It's a debate that's going on. It's not definitive. We don't know whether that ball was out or in. And actually, if we knew that, we wouldn't have had to even deal with the subsequent offside, subsequent, you know.
This is
there's potential for a handball that wasn't part of the checks either. So there's so many elements and facets.
Came after, didn't it?
And the really annoying thing for me is we spend so much time talking about these decisions. We don't have time to talk about the football, and that's it was brought in.
The football wasn't great, don't worry.
But it was brought in to improve the football and to improve the fairness of it. But we still don't have that.
Right, well, I'll just run you through a couple of papers very quickly. A huge story overnight. And the fascinating thing about this overnight is that lots of the back pages had a different image on it, and they had to change them overnight because of the gravity of this story and the widespread impact, if you like, because it does affect all teams, as I've been saying. There are bigger implications. So let's do this one. A bit of context. Anyone who knows Mikel Arteta's press conferences will know he normally keeps his cards fairly close to his chest. You go there on a Friday morning, he doesn't give you much. But he had the desk ripping up their back pages, hard-hitting language. Dave Jones referred to it on the show during the broadcast in the interview with Eddie Howe. This is a Sun back page yesterday. One word: disgrace. All very self-explanatory. Look at the subdeck as well. I feel sick and ashamed to be a part of this mess. And again, he's very clever with the language because he's saying, I'm part of what is going on. So he's including himself in it. And also at the very bottom as well, you can't call it the best league in the world with these mistakes. And this is the second massive one. There have been others, of course, but that's the second one. Just keep this on the screen a second more because got a guy in my ear telling me this. Because on the left-hand side, you can see the picture of the ball. A lot of people have been coming at me on social media, and they're right. It is inconclusive on the left-hand side, but to my mind, I'm allowed my own opinion.
That doesn't look inconclusive to me.
Well, the widely held opinion is that you need an overhead camera to be able to tell. That's why I've been out and about trying to hunt around, see if I could find one this morning. Haven't been able to. But on the left-hand side, that is that ball that looks as though it's out. To my mind, it is inconclusive. We accept that.
Because of the curve of the ball.
Because of the curve. And then on the right-hand side, it does look as though Joelinton has two hands on the back of Gabriel. And I know lots of people talk about he's going down already, he's going down in instalments. He does look to have two hands on his back. And it goes back to what we were saying before. Whatever you think of this, the problem is, as you correctly identify, Melissa, it becomes tribal. And when it becomes tribal, you don't manage to get to a resolution that helps other clubs. And we are back here again with other clubs complaining about the same thing that Mikel Arteta was articulating yesterday. To give you a couple more, you mentioned Johnny Northcross' piece. Here it is, because he was at the game yesterday, and in his first edition, his intro was, sometimes you feel like writing 2 match reports. So he did. He wrote a second one. And this one is terrific. And the intro to this is particularly good. He says this week the International Football Association Board, IFAB, ruled out broadcasting the audio of VAR decisions during live games. Their chief executive, Lucas Brood, feels it would be, as you've been saying, Vicky, a chaotic experience, quote unquote. Mr. Brood says, Johnny, we have news. VAR is already a chaotic experience. And this piece goes through all of the different elements that are contentious, and he talks about Stuart Atwell's handling of the game, and he talks about, it gives you other examples. He says it feels a little bit like when Wolves had legitimate goal disallowed in the FA Cup at Anfield in January because there were no camera angles available for VAR to check an offside call. And there are a litany of other things that are very, very instructive in this piece. Read it if you can. One other good piece as well, I'll go back to The Sun, because inside Charlie White was at the game and he sets it all out in this piece. Tussle on the tomb. He does hint at the fact that the FA may well be in touch with Mikel Arteta. But Charlie superbly sums up the chaos of the 90-plus minutes yesterday, and the way, and the inconsistency as well in some of the decision-making. He talks about the potential red card that wasn't given for the forearm smash from Bruno Guimaraes, the reckless challenge from Kai Havertz that wasn't given, and the other related bust-ups. It was a chaotic afternoon yesterday. Newcastle were the beneficiaries of it. The problems that we have so far this season is that down the line, it may well be that Newcastle are on the other end. And that's why we've got to get to a resolution that helps every club and helps referees as well.
We will get potentially later on in the show to the football side of things in that game, because there were a few issues as well, not least David Ryan. Does that give Mikel Arteta more of a headache in terms of his goalkeeping situation? But I do want to bring you one other line. Newcastle have just released a statement strongly condemning racist abuse sent to Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Willock via social media following their victory over Arsenal. This is what Newcastle say. Our message is clear. There is no room for racism in football or society. We're providing support to Bruno and Joe, and we'll work with relevant authorities and social media platforms to identify those responsible so that they can be held to account. So racism rears its ugly head once again.